How much time are you spending like prepping for the episodes? Because sometimes I'll listen up, like, I feel like I can't tell if you spent 6 days or 6 minutes. Hello. Are we live? I'm going to hit mute over here.
We're live and live.
Live and alive.
How do you feel about this studio being like exponentially nicer than like Kai Cenat's? And he,
Isn't that weird? I don't know. Should it make me feel good? I feel like I should like it. But it kind of having such depth, being able to see like 75 feet back
is a brag.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So is he still doing that?
30 days.
Yeah. I think that's been going on forever. I actually unfollowed when I made the Chef Kevin streams Instagram. I followed just Twitch on Instagram.
Yeah.
And they were simping. No surprise. They were simping for him so hard that I was just like, I think I'm going to unfollow this. This is just like.
Well, is that the goal? You want to be like Kevin Cenat?
Yeah, that's what I should.
Kevin Cenat. That's really
Kevin Cenat streams. That's what my Instagram should be.
I want to see you in a Beats commercial with Kim K.
I want to be sleeping in a bed and Miles Morales is talking to camera and I have no idea what he is saying.
You could get Natalie Morales.
That's true. I should
or
try to
Miles
do that.
Bonsignore.
Yes, both of them.
Have both of them on at the same time and just say, this is my version of Miles Morales.
The next stream should just be that. That's so good. I'm with Geoffrey James, the legend.
A filler episode.
Not at all. I am honored that you're here. I really appreciate that you agreed to do so late because I don't know what, I guess I would have just, man, if I say, I guess I just wouldn't have done one. Doesn't that kind of make it sound like a filler though?
It does, yeah.
Damn it.
Definitely, it was either me or this one didn't happen.
I walked into your trap. I tried doing a few solo ones and those were pretty fun, but
you just interact with the chat?
I would have the chat vote, but the thing I learned about Twitch is they can see the poll.
Right.
So what happened, and granted I was working with like 8 people, so it wasn't like 300 people, but they would make the results where it tied every time. And so I'd be like, choose your next adventure. And then it'd be like 50-50, yes or no. But then it didn't help because I would be like, hey, you keep doing this. So then when I called it out, then they're like, well, great. Now we're only going to do that. It was very funny. I have to give them credit.
So you need at least 9, or do you just need an odd number?
Or 7. Yeah, I guess one person could have left too, which is probably what happened.
One person could have, only one could have stayed and they could have just dominated your experience.
Yeah. But yeah, I've been doing it for a few months now. Have you done Twitch stuff at all?
I've never been on Twitch. I've been live on Instagram. And my favorite thing to do is just to like pitch people should just go live.
The Instagram Live stresses me out though because when I see it, doesn't it tell the person that I'm viewing them?
Yes.
That's what I hate. I think
Twitch doesn't do the same thing?
No, it says right now 23 people are watching, but it doesn't say like who are the 23.
Unless they comment or give you bits.
Yep, if they comment or
Let's get Kevin some bits so that he can get some
that would
old
be
masters
huge.
painting art for right here.
That would be very beautiful. I'm super thrilled you're here.
How are you? Where are you from?
Chicago.
Of course.
Chicago suburbs. I always need to caveat that because any sort of follow-up.
Evanston?
No, I wish. I'm from Naperville. It's
yeah.
Yep. How do you know about Naperville? Because you're
from Cleveland.
Yep, you're from Cleveland.
So I vaguely have heard of weird, like I'm from Sugar and Falls.
Okay.
Which like sometimes Chicago people are like, where in Cleveland? Because I kind of have a cousin that lives there. And I'm like, Sugar and Falls, and they might know.
That's interesting. And then did you move out here right after like college or?
For college, and then I stayed.
For college. Because you went to USC, right?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Which is one of many hateable things about me.
Did you? We're gonna go through all of them tonight. Did you? Were you like a films major student guy?
Yeah.
And then, is that how you know Zach and some other people?
Yeah.
Cool.
I did improv with Zach.
Yeah. Wow. That's wild.
That was like the thinnest thread that I feel like connected me with Sean and Hayes that made them be like, all right, let's see what he's about.
Yeah. That's awesome. And then, so then you've just been out here since college. How was college going from Ohio? Because I definitely had that fantasy of like going from Illinois to California for college. Like, it would have been so crazy. Did you enjoy it, or was it just like whatever?
I think I enjoyed it at the time, and then in hindsight, I was like, I shouldn't have done that.
Really?
I think it's good because I like met so many great people.
Sure. Yeah.
That's the best part of it. But it was like the school was too expensive, and also you don't need to go to film school to do things that you are interested in.
You can kind of learn a little bit on the job.
The best part of it was that I got to stay living in LA and intern at Headgum, and then that's how I got in with Jake and Amir.
Were you a intern? I was gonna say a Headgum. Were you an intern in college, or was it like right out of college?
It was after my freshman year, and then they just hired me part-time after that because like I was 10 minutes down the street from the old office.
Wow, that's wild. And then what were you doing as an intern?
I was doing menial tasks at first. They used to have this like podcast. They used to make there used to be a page on the Headgum website that was like people. And it was not the people who worked at the company. It was like people who had guested on any Headgum podcast ever.
Earwolf has that. It's like the talent page.
They modeled it after Earwolf's old website.
And it was like 900 pages long. It was like, was this really a good idea?
For the longest time, my main job there was finding the best photo of someone and populating it whenever they would guest. I hated when people had new guests on.
Yes, and also as an intern with like Improv for Humans and also Earwolf's side, I had to do that when I would publish episodes and fill out like a profile for a person. And then, but sometimes people would like have someone on a show. I didn't know who they were. I didn't really know what their credits were. And so then you're like Googling, but a lot of people understandably don't have like a 6-paragraph bio.
Yeah.
So it would be like, this person is a comedian. I was like, I guess that's all I'm putting. And here's a photo from their Twitter 3 years ago.
Yeah. You should have just said, this is their ethnicity and left it at that. Yeah. No photo.
That would have been smart. And then you went from intern to part-time after you graduated.
It was during. So I just kind of was.
That's really cool.
That was the best part of it. Yeah. I was like, and then I would make my schedule, as condensed as possible. Yeah. So I would like be at school 3 days a week and at Headgum 2 days a week.
Ooh.
And then they also let me start like writing and producing and acting in sketches for some reason.
Yeah.
And that's just like
that's wild.
Been working adjacent to as a contractor with Headgum since then.
And this was like around 7-ish years ago. Does that seem right?
Yeah, it was like 2016. Yeah. Started all that.
So
this is so funny. A good friend of mine, Jensen McRae, she's an amazing artist. She has a podcast that's also just kind of a straight interview. This is more than that. Yeah. But I mean, like, she's kind of like like an NPR person because she has many interests. Yep. And I'm like, why did you have me on this shit? Like, we're talking about my internship in college. Nobody gives a shit.
I feel the same way that no one gives a shit now. That I really didn't want this show to be me doing the Marin style. So who are your guys? And just, I specifically didn't want to start every episode with just saying like, how did you get started and how did you get to where you are today? Because I think that's kind of boring and dry. But this is like the 7th-ish one that I've done. And the thing that is fun about it is because podcasting is so green, all 7 have had different introductions to podcasting. Like that's Emma's true. Was like, she was driving for a Lyft and someone was like, do you want to edit podcast?
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so that's been that's the nice thing about podcasting specifically is so far everyone's had like a pretty different introduction.
I guess like it's yours and I's. Like I'm interested on a personal level. Sure, with you. Yeah. I just don't know if anybody cares about my journey on a stream.
Oh no, absolutely.
But you and I seem to have done the same thing, just at the 2 different networks that were there.
Yeah,
and you were at the cooler one. And then now you're at Headgum. It flipped, and now you're at the cooler one again.
Yeah, I have to go to the cool.
I mean, at that time, nobody would say it out loud, but I was like, guys, we're just trying to be Earwolf, right? Like, we're just trying to be a little bit more like that. And then we kind of would vaguely do that. And then now I'm like, Headgum's kind of broken out in a way that's exciting for me and makes me feel like I was invested in Apple in 1972. I know,
right? It is fascinating how all of that moved around. And then I applied before Earwolf. I applied for an internship at Max Fun because I thought Judge John Hodgman was cool. And then I was going to UCB shows and then was like, oh, all of these really funny people are on the Earwolf shows all the time. And then I ran into this guy, Thomas, who was interning at Improv for Humans, and did the wild thing of like, I recognize you from a YouTube video on Improv for Humans as the intern. And he was like, yeah, do you want, you know, are you interested in stuff? And then did my interview with Besser on an episode of Improv for Humans.
That's insane.
Yeah, it was very stressful. It was pretty cool because the improvisers were all really funny, so they all made it good.
I mean, he must have basically been like, I'm going to hire this guy. Let's just throw him in the...
Well, one thing that he did on a previous year was he had 3 people come on and basically interviewed all of them and just said up front, I'm only picking one.
That's insane.
It was wild.
That's psychotic.
And people like improvised around it and stuff. But I vividly remember being like, when they asked if I wanted to come on, I was concerned that it was going to be me and 2 other people.
Yeah,
and then have to do like a similar like, well, why I'm more qualified is, but it's not even about being qualified. Like
it kind of is vibes.
Exactly.
Because the 3 of you all probably have the same level of audition skills.
Yeah, no one's like bringing some crazy talent to the table. It's more like, would we like to be in a room with this person for at least 90 minutes max?
Well, it seems like you've never not passed the vibes test.
I think so. It's funny. We will circle back on vibes tests during Podcast Simulator.
Of course.
So when you're published, you're part-time and you're getting to be in sketches. It's funny because I just picture this like almost being pre-Headgum for some reason, but it was only 7 years ago. So Headgum is like a couple years old. So are you doing more like Jake and Amir stuff, or are you doing more Headgum, or is it kind of split?
I feel like it was from the moment they hired me after my internship to like the pandemic, it was a lot of like, I'm here for whatever you guys need. It was a lot of editing. They mostly hired me because I think my only employable hard skill is that I'm a good video editor, not a good audio editor, which is why we have a mixer on the Headgum podcast. But like I don't know how to use Audition, but but I was like editing a lot of like clipping things out.
Yeah.
And then because I was doing that and because it was so lean, it was literally Jake, Amir, Marty, who you know, and then one other employee and me as an intern. So they only had one full-time employee. I think Jake and Amir were only living off of their ad money, and then they weren't taking a salary or anything. So like it was startup vibes. I was unpaid for a while, and then they started to pay me a little bit. And I was just, I was just happy to be there.
Sure.
But I was like mostly editing video, doing menial tasks, grabbing lunch, and then because I was doing all that, they would let me kind of come in and shoot my stupid sketches on Friday, and they would be in them.
Yeah.
So from 2016 to 2020, it was mostly just miscellaneous editing stuff and
getting to film,
getting to write and produce and be in and edit. And
that's wild.
These sketches, which was like a dream come true because I grew up just loving internet sketch comedy. That's the summer that I interned with them. I also did this like writing fellowship at Funny or Die because I was like, I want to be in like internet sketch comedy.
That was my I loved every Funny or Die sketch. It was just like, I did a similar thing in college where I definitely tried to like hack a resume thing, which was I filmed my senior year of, do you know this?
You shot a sketch, uploaded it to Funny or Die, and then you put it on your resume as if you worked at Funny or Die.
I worked at Funny or Die.
Exactly right.
It's like posting something on YouTube and being like, I'm a YouTube employee.
It's like, well, no, honestly, I think it's smarter than that. It's just like actors, they like take one UCB class and then they put it on their resume being like, I'm a UCB guy. Yeah. It's like, no, you're not. You were never on a team.
You did 8 weeks of a class and didn't go to the grad show.
But I think it's smart. And I know a lot of people who did that. And I think I also did
I don't regret it. I'm glad no one like ever called me. I don't know what I would have said.
No one cares.
Yeah, that's true.
Again, it's just kind of vibes.
Resume stuff is very fascinating because I learned very quickly how many people are bullshitting on hard skill things too, being like, I'm a proficient Pro Tools expert, and then doing like one session and be like, oh, this is your second time.
You just have Pro Tools.
Yeah, you own Pro Tools and then put it on your resume. You said you were filming on Fridays. Did you do like a fast turnaround thing every week, or was it like you would spend like how much turnaround time were you putting on yourself?
Fast. I like that's kind of how I like to work.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Part of it is that I'm a little lazy, and then part of it is that it's fun.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we're live. It's kind of like this. It's like, it's what you were saying. Like, you don't have the post to worry about. It's like in the now, which is fun. But yeah, it was mostly sketches until the pandemic. And then I was already gonna launch a podcast with my friend Riley, who also at that time was writing and being in the sketches with me.
Cool.
Early, like January 2020, and then the pandemic hit. So then we stopped filming the sketches, and then it kind of just shifted. The company and my role just shifted to kind of like host, producer, editor.
So were you, when the Headgum Podcast starts, are you and I should just have known this from like basic research, are you like the host on episode 1, or do they start it and then you start to like come into that role?
It was supposed to be a pandemic podcast, so we all thought it was going to be like 4 episodes, like a mini series. And so,
wow, it was a pandemic podcast. I always pictured it like being around for so much longer.
It was launched in like May, I think, of 2020.
Yeah.
Or maybe March. But it was like, let's just do like 4 to 12 episodes. Like, let's ride this thing out, and it'll just be this thing over Zoom, that was like the thing of still trying to figure out how to do it over Zoom. Yep. And it was supposed to be super short-lived. It was supposed to be, basically the idea was supposed to be more like a staff happy hour.
Yep.
So you're just kind of hanging out with everybody because we're all like scared and sad.
Uh-huh.
And then the pandemic just kept going, and then so did the show. And everybody else stopped being interested in it.
Yeah.
So I was on every episode, but I wasn't like the host, I would say. It was supposed to be just the staff. And then I just wanted to be on every episode.
Yep.
And not everybody did. And then people started to all lose interest except for me. And then I started to get weirder with it and introduce, like, also as like the cabin fever kicked in for me and everybody. I feel like the show took a weird left turn, and it hasn't stopped turning left.
Earwolf did a similar thing, but it was much more short-lived, kind of before I started. And then I kind of like jumped in for a few called Staph Infection. And it was like all of the engineers are in a room, and then they would, I don't think if they release it as a podcast though, I think it was like live on, because I did a few when I started, but we would do it on like Facebook Live, and I would sit here like, working there for 6 months. And it was such like classic, like Funny or Die bullshit, where I was just like, hi everyone, my name's Kevin, and I'm here for Staph Infection. And I'm truly like, I'm 22, I've barely started, and I'm just pretending like, and I should be hosting this. With me is Kelsey, she works in ad sales, and Sophie writes the copy. Now, ladies, thanks for being here. And it was,
I mean, that's why you're successful though, is that you like,
put myself in this insane, stupid situation. But it was.
I do the same thing though, where I look back and I'm like, how the fuck did I have like the gall to do that? And I need it. I need more of that now.
Yes, same.
But that's not a bad thing to have. I think I used to think that it was like cocky, because I used to be that way, and then I was like, I should be less that way because I think I'm cocky.
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't think if you're nice to people, I don't think it's cockiness. I think it's just
no, and it's a very interesting like needle to thread, because I know some of my friends and I like shit on a few specific people. We're like, they're so cocky, what an asshole. And I'm like, oh, I think we're just jealous that they did that, and then it worked. But I feel like I've tried to like, I mean, I'm not proving it right now, but I've tried to like throttle back in that. But then what's interesting is watching younger people lean into it and then it pay off.
Oh, Gen Z has they have brass balls.
Yeah, it's wild. I think it's just growing up with the front-facing camera. They're like just so comfortable. I watched this.
And a healthy dose of nihilism, too.
Yes. Have you heard of Colin and Samir? They're these like YouTube
Everyone
guys.
Brings these guys up to me. Because sometimes if I'm at a party, I never really say what I do if I'm just meeting somebody that I know I'm never going to see again. But they'll be like, what do you do? And I'm like, sometimes they'll be like, oh, I work in podcasting. They're like, what do you do? And I'm like, I edit.
Yeah.
I don't say anything more than that. But then if they press, I'll be like, well, they're like, where? And I'm like, Headgum. And they're like, what's that? And I'm like, you know, Jake and Amir? And then they all are like, no, but I know Colin and Samir. And I'm like, right, so that just
just rhymes.
Yeah, that's not the same people. But who are they?
They're these two YouTube guys, and they got roasted, and it was very funny last week because they're like, today we're interviewing the CEO of Spotify, and all the comments were like, fuck you guys for doing this. What they do, I'm probably stealing a version of it, which is they talk to people who have like extremely successful YouTube channels about the production of their channels, and then kind of like a behind the scenes. And they'll be very pressing too with like, well, how much money did you make when you did that? And then the person will be like, 50 grand. And then they'll be like, well, that's cool. They had on this guy whose name I don't remember, but he's like a famous basketball YouTuber who's like 20. He, during the interview, he will answer questions to the camera. And so Colin Samir will ask him a question. And it's clearly like he's just a young kid.
Trained, or?
Yeah. I think he's just like, he's never not had a YouTube presence and stuff. And so he would, like if you ask me a question, he'd go, that's really interesting. So I started at Earwolf and then
the whole thing is a vlog.
And then eventually they would just like, they called it out and they were like, wow, it's really interesting that you keep looking at the camera when you answer our questions. And then he kind of goes like, oh, wow, I guess
kind of shuts down.
He's like, I guess you're right. I think I'm just very comfortable looking at a camera. And so that's what I do. I just like, I look at a camera, but then after they call it out, he stops doing it. But it is interesting that
they broke him.
How comfortable, Lee and I have some nieces and nephews that are like 5 and under, and they're all like fully aware of like cameras and phones and stuff. And we'll be like, let me see. Yeah. And they want to see the photo and stuff. And it's like, oh my God, imagine being like 3 and 4 and having a full understanding of selfies and stuff. It's wild. Anyway, a thing that I've had like similar circling conversations about is the kind of fusion right now. I mean, Spotify's big thing is they're like trying to get rid of the word podcaster and say creator now.
Because they're adding video and all that.
So video's the big thing that they're pushing. And so now they're trying to like pretend like no one's a podcaster. Everyone's a creator. And I have mixed feelings about it because I was chatting with some people that were like talking about a strong YouTube presence and how important it is, which I do agree.
Yeah.
Because they were like, YouTube has an algorithm that helps promote you. Where like a podcast can't
get promoted on Spotify.
No, it's like, it's just, you have the podcast. And I guess if it's popular, maybe it could potentially appear for other people.
Well,
but
you kind of have to get famous outside of podcasting in some way.
That, and also when you finish a podcast, there's no screen that pops up like on a YouTube channel, for instance, that's like, here's other podcasts you might enjoy. You kind of have to like click to a show's profile and scroll down to see other pods. But YouTube pushes so hard on the
up next.
Yeah, exactly. The up next and the side videos and stuff.
I mean, what do you think about the TikTok ban actually maybe happening? It sounds like it's as serious now as it has been.
Yeah, I feel like I have mixed feelings about it in regards to podcasting, because like one thing I've learned very quickly is a successful social media account I'll start with the positive. It does absolutely help your podcast credibility, because if you have like a big following, it just kind of says to the public, like, something about the show is working, and it probably has a decent sized audience. What the deceiving thing about it is it does not mean if you have a TikTok of podcast clips and every clip is viral, that does not mean your show is successful.
Yeah, because honestly, a lot of people might only be consuming the clips on TikTok, which leads to no revenue.
Well, have you heard there's people who will sit in a studio like this, pretend like they're doing a podcast, and then post it on social media, and there is no podcast. They just do it because it looks credible, and so they pretend like they are the guest of a podcast, when the reality is like they're fully just doing it to look.
You're talking about the people that are like, actually, you don't need to have any vegetables.
Yeah,
the best
100%.
thing you can have is crude oil in a sack.
But if they said it to the camera directly, I think people would be like, that's crazy. But because they're seated like this with the Shure SM7B and a mic arm, they go like, I mean, they seem pretty legit. And a lab coat that they bought on eBay. That's just like,
scary.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's usually medical advice, I feel like.
I know.
Maybe that's just my algorithm.
Yeah. It's a lot of like health hacks. And it's like, why are we doing all these body hacks? So I don't know. I definitely have a weakness, maybe not weakness, but I wish I cared more about social media with podcasts.
Yeah. That's kind of why I wouldn't mind if TikTok gets banned.
Yeah. I deleted the app like 8 months ago.
Same. Not 8, but recently.
It feels I really like it. I just also have such a short, like anything can distract me so easily. And I also, it bums me out that like, I'm also like, I'm not a great reader. And just
I was going to ask, are you reading more since you did that?
I was hoping I would. I'm probably just listening to more podcasts now. But yeah, the attention span thing kind of freaks me out a little bit. So that's kind of, I don't know. What do you think about?
I feel that way. I think it's too, it's like candy.
Yeah,
that makes me sound like a boomer, but I'm like, I'm trying to, it is a food with no nutrition, but it has nutritional value. I would say it's candy. I think it's chocolate because chocolate has like some protein. So, but like you're not gonna get healthy by having chocolate. This is a terrible analogy, but I'd like to see it go selfishly because I also like am trying to act and do comedy and stuff, and like all the casting directors, all the people are just like, well, you gotta have, like TikTok is huge, and I'm like, I don't want to do front facing comedy videos. That's not my thing. Like, no. I should, and I probably will, but if it doesn't get banned, but I've been kind of crossing my fingers being like, let's get this out of here so that the next thing can be more something that I'm good at.
Well, and now that I'm doing more YouTube stuff, what I ended up doing was I deleted TikTok and I was like, look at me, I'm killing it. And then I was like, oh, YouTube Shorts, this is cool. And just pretended like it was not.
So it's Reels, and I'm on Reels kind of a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I don't know if you feel this way with the shows that you work on, but I'm like, my coworkers I consider friends. Like I love my coworkers. So I'm like, I feel like even if it's over Zoom, I'm like, well, I got my like time in with my friends
for sure. It is a thing I'm trying to be better about of like reaching out to and I also think something that happens is if I ask someone like are you free tonight and stuff, it just doesn't work.
Not here.
So not here. So now what I do is like I say to a friend, could you get lunch next week? And then I just like put it in my calendar and then it's in there. And so, because I think the thing that I was, and probably a lot of people thought was like, once the pandemic's over, I'm going to be Mr. Social. And then it was just like, oh no, I
think my brain chemistry changed.
I think I'm just staying at home and now others are going back out.
I did explode socially after I got that stab.
Yep.
And then I just kind of got a lot out of myself. I don't know if I'm getting older or what. You're 32?
Yeah.
I'm only 27, which is crazy.
It is.
But, well, that sounds like like, everybody constantly reminds me that I'm like a child to them.
Yeah.
Like, it was my birthday a few weeks ago, and like, everybody was like, you're only 27. But I feel old.
Yeah.
I feel like in a new age bracket where I'm like, I'm all right to go out once a week.
I also think.
And if it's just to a dinner, that's great.
Working in, I don't know, this is probably not accurate, but the podcast grind, I feel like, I started getting grays, my gray hairs when I started doing, I now work on 8 episodes a week. And so that I feel like really slowed me down too of like, now I'm just, well, the other trick, I wonder if you have a similar experience with this. Because I enjoy the shows that I work on, it's so easy to work all the time because it's like the shows are fun. I think it would be easier if I hated the shows I worked on. There was an old Earwolf engineer who I never got to work with, but famously like hated the job and was really good. And so what they did was they were always the first to send their edits because they didn't want to work.
Yeah.
And so the moment the recording was done, which they hated, they drove home, they edited as fast as possible, and they're like, I'm done, you can't bother me. Wow. And so I was like, maybe something like that.
I hope they were salaried because I'm still like freelance. So I'm just like, if this takes me 11 hours, that's good.
Yeah. I don't know what they were.
But that's, I mean, yeah. So it's Handbook.
Yep.
It's Action Boys.
Yep.
It's
Yo, Is This Racist? We're Here to Help. And then there's random seasonal stuff like Big Grande's doing a Teacher's Lounge season right now.
Yeah. 8 episodes a week.
Yeah, because most of them have bonus stuff. So Yo, Is This Racist is like every other Wednesday, but then they have a bonus show on Fridays.
I couldn't even handle 2.5.
Action Boys is every Monday, but then they have a bonus show every other Wednesday. Handbook is Handbook Pro version, Flagrant One's Foosball. So that's 4 right there.
Do you feel like every other week is worse than if it was just every week?
No, because what I did was I padded it out so that no week has like all of their stuff on the same Wednesday, for example.
Yeah.
So it could be like 10 episodes some week if I scheduled it wrong. So I tried to like pad it out so
where
that
it's basically the same amount.
So that it doesn't really fluctuate. Because like every other Wednesday, I wonder if it's still like this. I could check. I would have 4 episodes come out on Wednesdays, and so my Tuesdays I was just like cooked because I was spending all day editing. But I think I like asked one of them like, can we switch to next week? And then it I think evened it out. So now it's like 3 instead of 4. But
that's insane.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that.
A lot of Celsius, basically.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yep. You joined the Headgum Podcast 2020. And then are you still, obviously you're not doing the same amount of video stuff during the lockdown. Like last year or so, maybe the year before, then do you start doing video? Because I think when Handbook joins like a year and a half ago, I remember seeing you. I'm so bad at making eye contact. I just fully space out and I talk to this panel.
It kind of feels like you're astral projecting, or you're like,
I should be.
You host this show the same way that, really proficient pianists regale a hall.
Yeah, in front of thousands.
Yeah.
And I have one person in front of me, and then I go like this, and I talk here the entire time.
Yeah. You're in your zone.
I know. I got to get better with the eye contact. What was I going to ask? How's the workflow change for you in like 2022? Are you still doing sketches, or is it less sketches?
Yeah, we used to do them every week.
Yeah.
Which I miss, honestly. That was just like so fun.
Yeah.
But Headgum's just obviously a super different company now, like, and it's better, but there's just like their priorities are like it's more important. There's A-list celebrities walking through the door in ways that just weren't happening before. It used to be in a garage, now
Crazy.
It's like in a prime office space, and it's just they don't, it's for fun, but it's like we're not going to give you this much money.
Sure, yeah.
So budgetary, and then also I think just like it's really disruptive to the studio when we're shooting in there.
Well, now there's so many shows recording and stuff.
I think if the people who work on the sketches, being like me, Riley Anspa, and like Amir, lived in New York, we could do it probably every week sense. Because nobody's other than David Cross. It seems like nobody's ever really in the New York office.
Yeah,
that would be fun, but budget. It's once a month, and it's every other month. It'll be a Jake and Amir video that I just edit.
Okay,
and then Headgum sketch that I write with Riley.
But Jake is in New York, so how is it tricky trying to do that?
Shoot. So Amir usually goes to New York and they shoot like 6, and then Jake comes to LA and they shoot another 6.
Okay.
Well, I guess 3 now. It used to be 6. Now it's 3 because it's only 6.
And then those all go on YouTube, and then some clips for socials. I'm guessing.
Which it has to be just for fun, because I have asked myself, like, why do they still do that? I also think that I'm a liability to the company financially. Like, there's no way I make back the money that I
the deficit.
That's what it's the deficit for sure. But I think that they like doing it, and I think it's just good for the brand, I guess. Like, it
was to what you were saying. It was a thing Earwolf really wanted the talent to do, and I think the talent was just like not down.
Well, that was such an era of like they were getting their sketch rocks off at UCB. Now UCB like just it exists, but not really in the same way.
Yeah, and now they're doing like live stream stuff, and
I think that's a good idea, and I think they're coming back a little bit. There's no reason UCB shouldn't be like vaguely similar to Dropout.
For sure, yeah, I agree. So what's the future looking like for you? Do you want to do a new podcast? Do you want to just keep doing Headgum Pod? More acting stuff?
Definitely more acting stuff. I mean, like I audition a lot and just don't get the jobs, but I just staying at that, and then I'm writing a movie, which is, Casey Donahue style.
Yeah.
Even though it's not going to go anywhere, I just want to do it so I feel proud of myself.
Sure, yeah.
And then it'd be fun to do a new podcast, but I kind of just want to use the Headgum Podcast to keep experimenting, because they give me such a long leash with that show.
Yeah.
Like we did something years ago. This was in 2020.
Yeah.
This was as it was kind of finding its groove, and I feel like, or maybe it was early 2021. I was like, that was where I was like, oh, this is what the show should be, which was I was like, I have this like boisterous personality. I kind of put on this character at Headgum of like this incompetent person who shouldn't have a job here, which in some ways I do forget to record the video sometimes for the first half of the thing, but that's like become part of the charm of the show. And it's this like thing that we are like, even if when it's bad, it's good.
Yeah.
And that's not always, sometimes it's truly just bad. But anyway, I'm rambling, but it was called The Audit, and it was like a month-long arc where I had people on to basically fix the show, and it was just comedian friends of mine, and they would give me notes on the show.
When was this? This sounds familiar.
This was it was during the pandemic, so it would have been late 2020 or early 2021. I think it was like March 2021.
Yeah.
And that's still one of my favorite episodes was with Zach Dunn. Came on and was just like, he was just starting and stopping the show and giving these notes, and it was a fun format to play within. The listeners have wondered if we would do another one of those, but I just didn't want to just keep repeating the same bit. But now it's been long enough that I'm like, if maybe we'll do that. I think.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because you're such a creative host. I feel like you bring all of these segments and different ideas to the Headgum Pod that I don't know. I just don't see a lot of hosts bringing, frankly, like that kind of effort. And so
I don't know how much effort it is though. Some weeks I'm like, yeah, that was a good segment. Those were like a series of good segments.
Yeah.
But really, I'm like, every week I should be able to bring that to the table. And like last week we did
It's easier said than done, though.
It is easier said than done. But like on this Friday's episode, we do a segment called Dell or Dell. And it's just quotes that were said by either Dell Curry or Michael Dell, founder of Dell Computers.
Great.
And each sentence is like a sentence any human could have said at any point. And I'm like, people have laughed when I've pitched it to them, but the segment itself is not, I think, that good.
Well, that happened. I've definitely been guilty of that too, of good idea, poor execution, where like
it's so much better when it's terrible idea, brilliant execution.
Yeah, it's like improv. It just goes so much, it's so much more fun that way. But I feel like there is definitely a correlation with things I've been most excited or cocky and confident about. And then I leave and I'm just like, that was one of the worst. An episode that came out today of We're Here to Help, there's this like unpaywalled Patreon call that was a person, she was probably like in her early 20s. And she's like, for 15 years, I've had this experience where when I was like 5, I was at Disneyland with my parents, and my dad, as a joke, told Goofy to pretend like he's kidnapping me. And so they have it all on camera. There's like pictures of me, and it's like I'm with Goofy, and we're both doing like a thumbs up. Then he grabs me, and I'm like, "What's happening?" And then he like takes me whatever down the restaurant and then comes back or whatever.
Illegal.
In the calls, she's like, it was really, it was crazy as a kid. I've always told this story. It turns out it was Pluto. It wasn't Goofy. And so my friend for my whole life has thought that it was Goofy. And so I was like, that's fun. Why don't you call in and then have your friend call in and you can reveal the truth on the call?
That's a great idea.
So I am so fucking, for lack of a better word, hard going into this recording. Like,
yeah, you wore leather pants.
I was like, this is going to fucking.
You dressed like Jim Morrison with a pirate shirt.
Chef Morrison. I walked in like, this is going to crush so hard. And then what happened? And this does happen every now and then, which is kind of a bummer. Whatever. I guess I get it. Sometimes people get a little starstruck with Jake and Gareth, and they just go like,
well, Gareth, because he's been, Gareth from New Girl.
The Brian, the security guard, and they just say yes to whatever Jake and Gareth say. So then she said, oh, I got, kidnapped from Goofy in Disneyland. And they went, that must have been really scary. And then she went, yes, it was. And then the vibe changed so hard where they were like, oh my God, you were kidnapped? And I'm just like, well, hold on. But that's like a good example, I guess, of a show where it's like, I get to flex the creative muscle through the calls that I pick, if that makes sense. It sounds kind of boring. It's just like looking through emails. But it does kind of dictate like the tone of the show.
What's your vision? What's your ultimate vision if you could snap and make it happen for this?
For this live stream?
This is your IP. You own the shit.
Yeah.
This is your shed.
I think just keep talking to people.
Is it a money thing?
Oh yeah, it's big
thing?
money.
Yeah.
I like having an excuse to talk to people about the behind the scenes with podcast and production specifically.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of using this as an excuse to like, my favorite chats at Headgum and Earwolf and just with friends in general have been like these kind of conversations where it's like the recording was really fun. And then I got to talk to Casey and Anya for like an hour and a half about how they make shows and like Emma and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just keep, the fear is that like I miss 2 weeks and then it just like the streams, it just stops entirely. And so what I'm trying
with how much you've decked the shed out, you can't.
I have to do it, but I'll keep recording pods in here. But I'm trying to use this as an excuse to like do Twitch stuff. Something that I do, and it kind of seems like you do with your Headgum videos is, or the Jake and Amir videos is, I will. So like part of my like mental strategy is I posted tonight. Here's my next 6 guests, and I post it on Instagram. And basically, that's like me signing a little contract with myself of like, now I can't miss.
Yeah.
And so I have to be here for all of these. I specifically booked people for these days. And so sometimes I'll do shit like that where I'll say, oh, by the way, I'll send that edit tomorrow. And it's like, I don't have to, but I know if I say that, I now feel obligated to do that. It's come back to bite me where I'll be like, so actually the next day, but
I don't think I hold myself to my own deadlines in a meaningful way. Like I'm trying to work on, that's like constantly my New Year's resolution every year is to be more disciplined. But like, I think the only way I can do it is if I put money at stake.
Sure.
I'm also terrible with money and I'm in so much credit card debt, but I've been wanting to write this one idea that I've had for a movie for like a year and a half. And I think my managers, they've been wanting me to write it too. And I think they just are like, they gave up and they were like, he's never going to write this fucking movie, which to me is somewhat motivating because I'll be like, I'll show you. And it's like, you could have just written it a year and a half ago without that. But
that's why I still live in LA. Everyone was like, you're not going to last. And I was like, fuck you, I'm going to stay.
I'm going to live in this terrible town forever. I am paying for this like rolling writers group class.
Cool.
And I'm like, I gotta fucking write because I'm spending like $115 every week.
Sure,
that's a lot of money. So
how many people are in the class?
It's only like 4 of us.
That's cool.
But it's with like it's been fun, and I'm doing it. So I need money to be at stake.
How much time are you spending like prepping for the episodes? Because sometimes I'll listen up like I feel like I can't tell if you spent 6 days or 6 minutes. One thing you set up last week that really made me laugh was you played a clip of, I think, was it Shannon Sharp, of like they were doing a
Sex or Next.
They were doing a live show, and then in the middle of the live show they said, ladies, come up and say what you're doing to your man, and it'll be Sex or Next. And it just felt
I should have watched further to see if anyone actually did start lining up.
It's an extremely cringy thing to do. And on a live show, people were just like, I guess, do I go up and talk about?
And then they're like, don't be shy because I can steal these ideas and use them in my personal sex life.
So insane. But then what you do with that is like you spin it and then go like, okay, everyone, time to share yours. I think that was super creative. How often are you spending prepping with that show?
That one was 6 minutes because I just saw a clip of that on Shannon's Instagram because I love him.
Yeah.
But and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna airlift that and use that on the show.
Great.
But then I mean, sometimes it'll be like 2 or 3 hours if I'm like there's these rubrics that I do. I think top 3 favorite episodes was, if anybody's watching this and has never heard the show, this is probably the one I would recommend starting with, maybe, or don't listen to it ever, it's fine.
Yep.
Is the post-nuptial episode. So Amir got married last October.
Yep.
And so we did a prenuptial episode and then we did a post-nuptial episode.
Great.
The prenup was with Avital and his now wife.
Yep.
And the post-nuptial was just everybody who went to the wedding.
Cool.
And on the post one, I debuted this like rubric thing, which was like a 2-page, really in-depth, we're going to rate your wedding or grade your wedding. But each thing is like copy that I spent like 15 minutes on, each like little square that you can grade it on, like below average, average, or above average.
Yeah. What were some of the things that people were grading?
It was like appearance of the bride, and all of them were like she was stunning, and then appearance of the groom, and it was just like ribbing Amir.
Below average.
And then like location, and then like I pulled up how much money, I found out how much money the venue cost, and I pulled it up and showed it on the episode, which actually was surprisingly affordable. I was like, that's a good venue. But
that's really funny.
So like that one took like 3 hours to write, and then I'll do like these weird song parodies that are they're probably the most alienating part of the show.
Very impressive.
But they're parodies of pop songs, but the lyrics are all about cooking rice in a way that makes it hard to eat. And those will take like an hour. So sometimes outlining takes like 3 hours, sometimes truly I don't outline and I just like do it in the 10 minutes before because God knows what I was doing the rest of the week.
Is there a compilation playlist of all of them?
Yes. If you go to Rodney's Rice, it's a user on YouTube who has compiled a playlist of all of the moments of the Headgum Podcast where I'm singing about overcooking rice.
That's very
until
impressive.
It tastes like sand.
That's really cool.
Is it?
I think so. Okay, I'm going way too long. I've already talked to you for an hour, and we haven't even touched Podcast Simulator yet.
Yeah, so this is like an RPG.
Yep. So we're going to jump into the pod sim. Today you'll be hosting the hyper-specific matchmaking podcast, Week in the Niche.
That's so good.
This is the first one that is a host mode. Every episode so far has been producer mode.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited to debut host mode.
Week in the Niche.
With you, you're going to be hosting this podcast. So let's learn a little bit more about the show. Each episode, host Geoffrey James talks to two guests who match on the dating app Cloud9, a dating app that only allows you to enter one very specific thing about yourself.
Is this a real app?
No.
Okay.
Cloud.
So you've created multiple business opportunities here for yourself.
I initially called it Cloud10, and then I quickly discovered that is the name of a legitimate podcast network that has several shows on it. And so I was like, well, that's going to be confusing.
Yeah.
So Cloud9 is this dating app that is going to be sponsoring the show. They have paid the network $200,000 to sponsor an 8-episode season of the show. And of that, you will get $40K. What are your thoughts so far?
So much more money. I hear about these deals that Headgum makes sometimes where I'm just like, sorry, you ordered 12 episodes for how much money and I get paid this much?
Yeah, it's weirdly common with networks, the amount of, and I'll go into a little bit on the role, but it's just wild the amount of budgeting that goes into some of these shows.
$40,000 for 8 episodes is unbelievable.
Yeah, so that's a pretty good deal. I mean, it's wild that you're getting just like a fraction of this, but I'll take $40K for 8 episodes.
Yeah.
Let's get into your role. You are the host of the show.
Of course.
Once a week, you will be emailed all of the potential pairing options of people interested in guesting on the show. You and your producer will decide from there. And then basically you have to promote the episode every week on social media with hashtag Cloud9. So you kind of have to sell out a little on the gram.
That's fine. I used to write for Carpool Karaoke, which is the spin-off version.
Aren't you an Emmy-winning writer?
No, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
No, my boss is the Emmy winner. Shout out to David Young.
Wow.
The staff never got. We were officially not listed as Emmy winners.
Officially not listed.
I wasn't even told that we won the Emmy.
That's very funny.
But this is what the show was. We would pitch like celebrities to be paired in the car together because James Corden wasn't even a part of it.
Yeah.
So I think we can do this.
Okay. Well, you already have experience in this. And the network is going to supply several people. So this is kind of what chips away at the $200K. Producer, engineer, editor, video editor. These are all separate people.
You could fire the producer. I can do that. We could fire the editor. I could do that. I could do the video editing too. And as long as we can get
Matt Apodaca said the same thing. He said, I can save this show a lot of money.
I met Apodaca?
Yes,
I met
probably.
Matt Apodaca.
You've
at the holiday party?
You Matt Apodaca.
I Matt Apodaca.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
I didn't know it was him. I just thought he was, I knew his name because his name is iconic, really.
Yeah, he was rocking a Get Played hat at the Headgum holiday party.
But I didn't know Matt Apodaca hosted Get Played. I don't know what Get Played is.
It's the video game. It is called How Did This Get Played? And it's Nick Weiger, Heather Ann Campbell, and Matt.
Okay, that's great. But to me, he's famous for his name.
Yeah, he has an awesome name.
Yeah.
Okay, we got the network support, producer, engineer, editor, video editor, marketing support, ad support. So it's just kind of over the plate. Has a lot
It'd be great to have marketing support. Headgum doesn't even have that.
Yeah. Well, I wonder what network this would be. I kind of just assumed it was Headgum, but it could be anyone. We'll see.
Well, yeah, I've considered another bit that I'm not going to say it. I'm going to do it because I'm going to do it soon. So I want it to be a surprise.
Pilot's license. This is the first scenario.
Yeah.
The first recording session is a lot of fun. There's a few potential couples who zoom in and meet for the first time and chat about their shared, very specific interests. This is what I was talking about with vibes earlier. You assign yourself the nickname Dr. Vibe Check, and basically you ask a few big picture questions to see if there's any deal breakers or if they are ready for a second date. Basically, you're kind of the matchmakery host where these two people are meeting for the first time and you're like, so what do you think about, you're both interested in pink apple and lemon seltzer water.
Mm-hmm.
And then they talk about that. And then you say like, where are you guys from and stuff? And you're kind of like courting this first date.
Yeah.
And hosting it. So anyway.
So it is romantic.
Yes.
Okay.
So you're doing this, you're doing it for the first recording. It's going very well. However, something you weren't told about, Cloud9 gets to send a round of notes for each episode. They don't think you're promoting Cloud9 enough, and they want you to re-record a lot of your parts to bring up how great the app is. In this scenario, what are you going to do? Will you accept it and re-record all of these parts, or are you saying, that's weird, I'm not doing that?
Do you remember that ad package that was like, it ran for like a fucking year and it was spending so much money on all of Headgum's shows?
Yes.
For that one show, I forget who it was by, like something and Mandy B.
Yep. Yeah, they bought like 10 ads for Handbook.
I did not care how often we had that ad, which was every episode for like a year.
Yeah, it was wild.
I did complain that I was like, this is like not trans inclusive language, and they changed it.
Oh, nice.
But, so after that, I was like, I'll do as many of these as you fucking want because it's paying.
Yeah.
Sure. Of course.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. Everybody wants their favorite creators and people to get paid.
Yep. People still weirdly complain about it, but yes,
But those people they're a minority, I think. I think most people are just skip the ad. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay, so you're gonna go with sure. And let's see. It's a little unnatural, but it is a limited run series that's very clearly sponsored by Cloud9. So you suck it up and add a few clunky lines about how great this dating app is that you've never used. So you got a B+ as a host grade. And so I think Zach, our talented video editor, pointed out something interesting. For producer mode, the host grade has always been the host grading the producer. And he pointed out, who's the host grade in this scenario?
It's got to be audience reaction.
That's what I said. Yeah. I think it's the general public giving you, the host, a grade. So you get a B+ from the general public as a host, and the network gives you an A. They're very happy that you did this. I'll give you a little spoiler alert. If you passed, they would have picked a different host. And
of course.
You would have lost.
Nice.
Okay.
I will say that if I had to grade myself as a host, I would probably say B+. And if the network was going to grade me, I think it'd be a D-.
For
in real life.
Just for regardless, yeah. They just give you the D-.
Yeah.
Because you're you.
Because they don't want to see me.
Best week ever. This is the next scenario.
Okay.
For episode 4, you are told reality show star Tabby Tabs is a huge fan of this show. The network thinks it's a great idea to have her co-host an episode with you. You are all in, but the night before the recording, you noticed a poorly timed post on Instagram the day after the election about her show being picked up. Her caption reads, "The week just keeps getting better." Tabby is getting dragged online and your episode comes out a few days later. So in this scenario, what do you do? Do you bail on the recording with Tabby, or do you still record it?
Bail. You just tactfully push.
Yes.
Just be like, something, like you can do it in a way that she's not offended and the door's still open, but you don't have to like throw yourself into the heat. But she's getting a lot of clicks online.
Uh-huh.
This one's way harder than the first one. The first one was clear.
First one's a little over the plate.
When it says you're all in this scenario, I'm a fan of hers. Or because I don't watch reality TV.
I think you're not a reality show fan, but you think it's cool that this person is like,
I'm gonna bail.
Okay. We're going bail on the recording. You're concerned about getting called out for having someone on as a co-host who's getting lightly canceled the same week. However, the network does not care and doesn't think this is worth you pulling out. They replace you as the host for the remainder of the season. You got to B-. Actually, from the public, you technically should get an A, but you are no longer the host. So you get a B- as a host grade and an F from the network.
What is this network that's bailing on its host of a limited run of 8 episodes? They've already paid me out, too.
Yeah, I think this is a higher, this one's a little bit bigger than a traditional network.
I would say, have you ever edited or produced a segment that you've been like, I might get heat for this?
Yes. More like, I can't think of a specific example, but like things that we've done where I'm like, this will be interesting. But similar to what I said before about the cockiness of like, well, this is going to crush. Sometimes when I'm like very scared of like, we're going to get so much shit, I'm like, oh, I guess we didn't. But then sometimes I'm like, I think we might get a little shit. And then we do get shit. So it does happen. I am definitely a scaredy cat. And so I don't really pitch.
It's a better way to be.
As a flaw though, I would say as a producer, when people are like, let's do this crazy thing, I'm probably always the first to pitch why we shouldn't do it instead of pitching why we should do it. So I'm traditionally the scaredy cat, which probably reflects in this scenario, you get an F. How about yourself?
There was one segment on the Headgum Podcast I did 2 years ago that I was like shocked people had any kind of negative reaction to. It was, but then afterwards I'm like, I get what you're worried about, but they were like, I had 2 comedian friends of mine on, 3 comedian friends. I had Billy Brick, Cecily Bro, and Lucy Blehar. Lucy Blehar is in a very funny comedy music band called Big Sis. Just plugging my friend's stuff.
That's cool. Cool band.
I was doing a bunch of reality TV show based parody segments at the time.
Great.
So I parodied Too Hot to Handle with Too Many Squats to Handle.
Okay.
And it was like a squatting contest.
Uh-huh.
Lucy did it. Cecily did it. I did it.
Yeah.
Billy refused. I don't know why.
Interesting.
And so then everyone in the comments was like, real nice, Jeff, forcing 2 like women to squat on camera for you. And I'm like, they're not even on camera while they're squatting. And like they loved the segment. Like that's their sense of humor.
People
and I
think
made
you're
the
like
segment because
Howard
that's what they're
Stern.
like. Yeah, I'm not like Howard Stern. I'm like, that's what I know they would have enjoyed.
Nice
and they
job,
did.
pervert.
And I'm like, and then I kind of got mad at Billy. I was like, you know that they're only doing this because you refused to participate. Yeah. If you had done it, it wouldn't have optically been that I forced 2 women to squat on a podcast. But I also squatted.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. That's very funny. Okay, so you failed. So what happens in this is we have to go back.
Yeah.
And you have to...
So we'll still record.
So now...
I was really... I almost said still record. I wish I could have been undefeated on this show.
Something I'm really tempted to do, and I don't know if people would enjoy it. I think it might annoy people, but it's kind of why I'm tempted to do it. If you fail, I kind of feel like the game should just be over. And then I just say like...
the live stream's over.
Thanks for coming, man. Is there anything you'd like to plug? And we only got 2 scenarios in. It's very maybe one day
I think you should do that because the stakes are just so high. That's good content. And if each one you make it through is a huge deal. It's kind of like Deal or No Deal.
That's really true. Maybe I should start, because then I could reuse some of these too. It would be so funny.
Because like I would have been fucking devastated if it ended right there.
Yeah, and if I was like, all right, thanks, man. Thanks for coming. Okay.
So demoralizing for me to like leave. You stay in here and I go out to my car.
Yeah.
That sucked.
You're just watching from your car. Okay, still record. Poorly timed and worded, however, you're not super surprised, but there's only a few episodes left. You do get called out by a few people online when you promote the episode, but oh well. B-, probably a C+, host grade. Network gave you an A for going through. You've passed, and we're on to the next scenario. Go ahead.
Something that I don't think I should, never mind. I'll tell you after
Great.
Off air. I don't want to get in trouble.
Next scenario, we have 2 more scenarios. This one's called One Night Stand.
Okay.
You have 2 people on who both said their specific interest is one night stands. Raunchy.
Nice.
However, when you have them on, one of them is interested in hooking up, while the other clarifies that they enjoy having a single nightstand next to their bed.
That's funny.
It gets a laugh by everyone. They say they originally wanted to put more info and context on the app to clarify, but there's a character limit on Cloud9, so they only were able to basically put that. They have a lot of chemistry. It's very fun, and it seems like they're going to go on more dates. It's a very fun episode. Cloud9, however, does not appreciate the critiques of their app, and they want you to heavily edit the episode or can it entirely. So this is a unique scenario in that you have 3 options here. You can heavily edit the episode to make it seem like there were no sort of critiques. You can just can the episode entirely, which has been a very tempting thing. I feel like when you have to edit the shit out of an episode, sometimes it's like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Or you can push back with Cloud9 and the network on, hey, this really should come out. This is an incredible episode. And editing it and changing it is, it's just fully going to take the fun out of this.
Push back.
Okay.
It's about clicks.
Yep.
And, as long as people know about Cloud9. Also, no way.
You tried to reason with the company, telling them that it's a great moment and their listeners will appreciate the refreshing candidness. However, the company did not pay $200,000 for some quote-unquote pushback. So they go and find someone else who won't. You got a C+.
Insane.
As a host grade, and you failed with the network. I feel like I should not flip it, but I think you should get an A- as a host grade.
Yeah.
Because you are pushing for realness.
That's just, they have a bad marketing team. Don't fire me. Fire your marketing person because you don't understand that.
I don't think you're wrong. Okay.
Well, the other one that I was going to say is just heavily edit.
Heavily edit.
Yeah.
Let's go with heavily edit. With a belingered sigh, did I say that right? You agree to heavily edit the episode, cutting all the references to any potential shortcomings the app may have. It makes for a slightly more boring episode, but at least the giant corporation is pleased with you. Nice job. Though they would have preferred it didn't happen in the first place. Okay, you passed. You got a C as a host,
That's
and
insane.
The network gave you a B+. Last scenario. We are turning up the heat. This is fun. I'm kind of proud of this one. Wow, it's season finale time already. For your final episode, you are hosting a live stream when you invite all of the potential couples you have featured on the show into the studio to see how they're getting along.
So a reunion episode.
Yep.
Golden
So you're
Bachelor.
having all 7 of the previous couples on.
Yeah.
Overall, it's mixed, but it's a mixed but fun bag. Couple number 1 went on another date and they're starting to hit it off. Couple number 3 turned it into a sort of mutual ghosting. Couple number 4 thinks they might have found the one. When you get to couple number 6, however, one of them remarks that you're very cute in person and that if she could, she would change her one interest on the Cloud9 to Geoffrey James. So this is your final scenario. In this moment, you have 3 options. Are you going to flirt back, cautiously play along, or shut it down?
Shut it down.
Look, you may be the fun. You may be the fun, playful host, but that doesn't mean these people can objectify you like this. I mean, you're a person, You let them know that this kind of behavior is neither welcome nor appreciated. And, well, it certainly doesn't stop from making any future flirty comments. It also, unfortunately, makes everyone else in the room nervous, and they proceed to walk on.
Well, I wouldn't have said it like this.
The moment gets cut out of the episode entirely, and Cloud9 declines to sponsor another season.
What?
But I'm glad you stood up for
because
yourself.
I was professional.
And it really made you uncomfortable. That's important. So you stood up for yourself. You did the right thing. You do get a D as a host grade.
There's no way.
You failed with the network.
That's the right thing to do.
That is at the end of the simulator. I guess you can turn back time.
Okay, fine. Cautiously play along.
Okay, you did it. This is the moment you've been waiting for. An opportunity to truly flex those charismatic hosting skills. Your response threads the needle between too hot and too cold perfectly. And the rest of the episode bounces along with the fun energy. You get an A as a host.
That's perfect. The other one was like too doomsday. It wouldn't have gone this well.
Congratulations. You nailed it on a successful first season.
The stakes are way too high in either direction for the whole simulator.
That's the pod, dude. How do you feel?
I feel like I failed multiple times. The only one I got right was the first one. I felt great after that.
Yeah, you were kind of like 1 for 4 or 5.
But I take issue with some of the outcomes because I think they're not realistic to real life. I think you shouldn't.
Yeah, it seems like to your point, a marketing network may want to push more for the clicks, and so they might like the more raunchy real stuff, because
especially a dating app. It's not like insurance.
Yep. It is interesting that I'm lucky, but no, I guess this is kind of changing. I feel like in the early days, advertisers never tried to have any sort of like creative control. It was just literally say the call to action with the promo code, and that's all we care about. Now it's much more like advertisers wanting to hear the ads early and giving notes and asking for like re-recordings and stuff. So I tried to like put that on steroids by like them sponsoring a show and then doing this thing where, and I've seen versions of this where it's like I guess I get it. When an advertiser puts more money into a show, they're much more like, now I have,
if it's SponCon,
now I get to say,
yeah.
But then you get weird shit like this where they're like, it's non-funny creative people giving creative people notes. And then it's like, well, you're objectively making this worse.
Yeah.
But you're paying, so I have to. I guess this was,
but
like
that's
Funny
why I
or
say it's a
Die.
bad marketing.
Yeah.
Like like Barbie, great.
Yeah.
At the highest scale, it's because you let them do their thing. And like that, because I left Barbie being like, wow, Mattel's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
You don't leave like a Gillette Fusion sponsored mini series being like, I loved the Gillette Fusion.
Yeah,
when
that's
it's
true.
like staunch copy, and then there's the show.
Yeah. It's interesting, and I've talked a little bit about like the too many cooks of it with I think this is a tricky one where the network wants one thing, the dating app wants another thing, marketing wants one thing, and then you want a thing.
Yeah.
So then it's just like every scenario is kind of throwing these curveballs at you that can make even an 8-episode thing more stressful than it needs to be. Okay, I think that's everything. Podcast Simulator. Thank you so much for being here, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, this was great.
Super cool that you were here. Is there anything you'd like to promote?
No. If you work,
If you work,
if you work, good for you. That's what I want to promote.
Yep.
I want to promote unions in general.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Check you out.
Promote myself, I guess. The general idea of being around me.
That's good.
I did audition for Sean Clements's pickleball movie.
Yep, the Dink.
Didn't
Any
get
word?
it, but that would have been.
Well, they're still filming, so
They're still filming,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
But I would have promoted my audition tape for that to Sean.
Ooh.
We should take another stab at Headgum Podcast X
Let's do
Hollywood
it.
Handbook.
Let's do it.
Cool.
I'll be there. I do want to talk pop punk with you on the Headgum pod.
Yeah, I'll come up with some framework that's a stupid
punk.
bit that you have to get through.
Yeah,
But that we also get to somewhat earnestly talk about early
I like that a lot.
to mid 2000s emo music.
Pod punk.
I
don't
have
know if you say pod punk.
the butterfly from the cover of Pretty Odd I have tattooed here.
Wow.
Um,
So check out the tattoo. That's another good thing to promote.
yeah, look at my arm the next time you see me. Anyway,
We're gonna keep talking
most people
about
have
this.
no idea what we're talking about.
We're gonna keep talking about this off stream. Thanks everyone for watching. Thank you so much for being
Namaste.
here.
Thank you for having me.
This was awesome. And we'll see everyone next week with Jamie Loftus, heavy hitter. Going to talk about a bunch of pods with her.
Hot dogs.
And hot dogs. My wife has a hot dog hat for her that she's excited to give her. And going to be a lot of fun. Thank you so much. And I will see you next week. Bye.